Hey y'all, now for the moment that one or two of you may have been waiting for. And that is, we're finally going to cut this puppy. This is the model that we studied the concept of, then we went ahead and assembled it in Aspire, vCarve Pro, and vCarve Desktop. So let's go ahead and get on with it. So I went out and I got the material to carve this model. And if you recall, I created the file for a piece that was 12 inches wide in X and 12 inches high in Y and a thickness of 3/4 of an inch. Well, the material we selected was this piece of Goncalo alves, which is also known sometimes as Brazilian tiger wood or just tiger wood, obviously because of the stripes in the grain. And if I measure this out, it is actually about 13 5/8 tall and about 16 5/16 wide. So that means I'm going to have to change the file. Also, it was drawn up for a piece that was 3/4 of an inch thick. And when I got my calipers out and measured this, this is 15/16 of an inch thick. So almost a full inch here that I have to play with. So I'm going to go in, modify the file. I had already saved G-code for this file, but after looking at the pattern, I've got to think about model placement within this piece of material. And I have this cathedraling here in the grain, right in this area here, but this large wide stripe. I also have these darker stripes out here on these edges. And I really honestly think that the model would look best with this being the center of the model. So what I'm going to need to do is grab a pencil and my tape here, and my model is about 11.5 inches wide. So I want to take the approximate center of this big wide stripe here, and I want to put the center of my model about right here to kind of put that wide stripe. Let me make that over, bring that down. We'll make that over in here somewhere, roughly the center of that big wide stripe. That way I don't have a weird stripe off to one side or what have you. Now I do have this lighter colored stripe here and a little bit of a wave in this grain here, but that'll be all right. So I'm going to put the center of my model right in this area here, the center in X, right in this area here. So now what I need to do is go ahead, figure out, there's the center of the model in X. And let's just go ahead and put a tick mark right out here at the edge. So then I'll come and take this tape and I'll measure over, that's roughly 2 inches. So when I modify the file, I'll put the actual material size into Aspire, then offset the model 2 inches over in X from here. Now in Y, it doesn't really matter, just so long as I have it more or less centered. I mean, I've got some interesting grain down here that I think would distract, so I'm just going to kind of center it vertically in Y. But in X, I want to put the center of the model somewhere in this area here. Let's go inside, get the file modified. I'll resave my G-code, then we can mount the material and start carving. Okay, when I brought that piece of material home, the first thing I did was I came back to the file and went into Job Setup so I could put the measurements of the piece of material into the software. And what I have here is 16 5/16 wide in X, 13 5/8 inches tall in Y, and my thickness for this piece is 15/16. I made those 3 changes. I'm leaving my XY datum position down here in the bottom left corner because, again, that's where I set my X, Y, and Z0 outside on the machine. After making those changes, I clicked OK, and then Aspire recalculated the toolpaths automatically. Since I'm not making any changes here, I'll just go ahead and hit cancel so it doesn't start recalculating things. From there, what I did was I offset this 2 inches over from this edge of the material to get that stripe pattern in the center of the flourish here. Then I centered it vertically, just using Align Selected Objects vertically to the material. From there, I recalculated the toolpaths again, but I made a few changes. So we'll go over here into Material Setup just to double check, triple check. My thickness of the material is set over here. None of this here has changed at all. So I'll go ahead and cancel that because I don't want to make any changes to it. And we'll start going through the toolpaths. Now in the 3D roughing toolpath, I didn't make any changes here. Everything is just as it was in the previous video. In the pocket, I didn't make any changes, although I should have. I'll get into that a little bit further, a little bit later on. Go ahead and close that. In the 3D finishing toolpath, I didn't make any changes here except to change my raster angle to 45 degrees. The way the material is mounted, the grain runs vertically. I've not cut this wood before, so this is a new experiment for me. What I'm going to do is, instead of machining with the grain or across the grain, I'm going to machine at a 45-degree angle to the grain. I entered a raster angle of 45 degrees here, then recalculated the toolpath. Now I'm not going to recalculate now because I don't need to. In the V-Carve toolpath, again, my start depth is set to start on this pocket after it's been milled. No other changes or modifications to this toolpath. The profile cutout. I did make a change. I made a serious change. I created 3D tabs and I put them in the corners here, where the corners where I'm screwing down the material will hold this piece in place. So I can flip it over and put a keyhole right about in the center right here. Close that. Another modification I made was I added a start depth. After all of this is machined away out here during the 3D carve, it's not going to be 15/16 thick right here. I need to change so that I don't spend the first 3 or 4 passes cutting air. In the preview, I looked at the preview, and I'll show you that in just a second. I looked at the preview, and this rope pattern will be carved down to about 0.375 down into the material. So right close to 3/8. So that's where I'm starting the cut, is 3/8 below the surface of the material. I only want to cut just a little bit past the thickness of the material. So what I need to do is I need to take the thickness of my material and subtract that number from it. Now the thickness of the material, if you recall, we'll go back here into setup, was 0.9375. What I want to do is I want to cut the remainder of the material. I don't want to go punch all the way through and carve all the way down into the spoil board a 1/2 inch. So a little simple math gives me the cutting depth of 0.5745. If you take this and add it to that, you have the material thickness plus about 5 thousandths. I'm using an 1/8 inch end mill, and because I'm using an 1/8 inch end mill, I cannot do a separate last pass. Reason being is the cutting length on that end mill. It may or may not make it. If it moves in after this separate last pass, if it moves in to cut through the material, and a part of that bit that does not have a cutting edge is forced up against the side of the material, it could snap the bit, wreck the project. So I'm not doing a separate last pass. That just means I'll have that much more sanding and cleanup to do after it's done. So the major changes I made to the profile cutout was I changed the starting depth to about 3/8 of an inch down, cutting the remainder of the material, not the full thickness of the material. No separate last pass, and added 3D tabs, 1/2 inch long, 1/4 inch high. I'll go ahead and close that. Then we'll go into our preview. I'll go ahead and preview all of the tool paths. If we come over here and I put my cursor down in this area here, you see my readouts down here. You'll see where my Z level is, 0.375. That's where I got that number. That's about where this rope ends. So that's where I'm starting my profile cutout. That way I don't end up cutting air for the first 3, 4, 5 passes. So that's where I got that from. So I can go ahead and reset my preview now, close this up, go back to a straight Z view. Then, once all these had been recalculated, all my changes made, I saved G-code. So now that I have that G-code saved onto my thumb drive, we can take it outside, transfer it over to the computer, and start cutting. Okay, with the file modified, my G-code saved, I can now mount my material to the spoil board. I can fire up the CNC and get ready to carve. Because this is a rather large piece of material, I'm going to go ahead and just screw it down to the spoil board using some number 8 by 1.25 inch wood screws. I'm going to have to drill down in, countersink, and I'm going to fasten it down at the corners. Okay, with the 3D roughing toolpath finished and the pocketing toolpath finished, it's time to go ahead and chuck in the 1/16 inch tapered ball nose bit and do the long 3D finishing carve. And here's the final product. Now, I did not get time to finish this. The weather has taken a turn for the worst. We've got rain coming and the humidity is way up. If I were to attempt to spray some lacquer on this now, it would certainly blush and I'd have nothing but a hot mess on my hands. So I will post pictures of the finished project on my social media, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll try to hit all three. If you're not following my social media, well, first of all, shame on you. I'll put links in the description below so you can follow me and see the finished article when it's finally finished. I'm also going to put links in the description box to all the tools and supplies that I used to finish this so far. I'll also put links in the description to Dave Gatton's homepage where you can get information on a Gatton CNC of your own. I've been running this puppy for over a year and a half, and I got to tell you, I love it. So the link to Dave Gatton's homepage where you can get information on one is in the description down below. Now, I mentioned that I would have done a few things differently on this, and I'll put up some still shots right about now to kind of help show you what I'm talking about. But in the area here where this pocket is, I did not take into account the fact that the 3D finishing toolpaths were going to remove so much material. It left a ridge running right down the center of that pocket. What I should have done was measured the width and the height of that ridge and then pocketed it out separately. Then finish the complete pocket. An oversight on my part would have saved me some time. The bit ended up cutting quite a bit of air until it machined out that ridge and then started cutting into the pocket. Those of you who didn't fast forward past the time lapses, you saw it. You know what I mean. Other than that, I think what I'd like to do from here on is learn a way to combine a 3D model out here and this 3D model here to make this flat section in here a part of that model so that the entire thing is treated as one big composite model and I'm not running separate pocketing toolpaths. That would have been a much better way to go, would have eliminated creating that other toolpath and probably shaved some time off of the cut. Now, for those of you who are into the numbers, this was a little over 7 hours to cut. And it's just simply because there was so many lines of G-code. The 3D finishing alone were over 560,000 lines of G-code. That takes time to run. You know, we lose sight of just how big some of these files are and the fact that the step over on that 3D finishing toolpath is so small, it's moving over, that bit, each pass is moving over just a few thousandths of an inch. And that just takes time. And adjusting feed rates, adjusting plunge rates won't do much good. I mean, it'll help a little bit, but not a lot. It's just a lot of lines of G-code, and it takes time to run all those lines. Now, I'm not complaining a bit. I like the project. Just forewarned is forearmed. 3D carving takes time, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, I'd like to thank you for following me through this series. I hope you got something out of this video, and I hope you got something out of the entire series. I really do. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. You're usually not the only one with that question, so the more questions and answers people get their eyes on, the better for everybody. If you got something out of this video, I do hope you'll give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to follow along with this series, the Vectric Software for the Absolute Beginner series, or just any of my further CNC adventures, I do hope you'll subscribe to my channel. But, as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, And I sincerely mean that. And y'all take care.